1x Developer Podcast.
Hello, everybody. It is another episode of the 1x Developer Podcast. How's it going? I'm Colin.
I'm Brendan.
I've been thinking maybe we should start switching up how we start these off.
Oh, okay.
There's definitely nothing wrong with how we do it, but I don't know. Maybe users let us know what can we do to, you know.
Switching up how? What do we need to do? Like, what do other podcasts do?
I don't know. I feel like most people have like some sort of catchphrase or something they do. Like they say like, "What up, 1Xers?"
Yeah.
Sub my ones and X's, 1X family.
Yeah, that's true. We do need fans of the 1x Developer Podcast need a name for the crew.
Yeah.
We'll have to think on that one. I like 1xers. That's pretty good.
1X would be pretty good, yeah. 1Xers. 1X. 1Xer makes me think of like Gen Xer.
Oh, yeah,
sort of.
That's true. I don't have anything right now. I'll have to think on that one. But yeah.
All right, Brendan, what are we going to talk about today?
Why do we do Agile when everybody hates it?
Yeah. So let's start with this. What is Agile?
It involves scrums.
Yeah. So Agile software development is an umbrella term for approaches to developing software that reflects the values and principles agreed upon by the Agile Alliance, a group of 17 software practitioners in 2001. I didn't even know this. There's an alliance, and it's 17. Who are they? Do they have names? Can I be one of them?
I didn't know that there was even a formal definition of Agile, to be honest. I thought it was just something that kind of evolved.
Yeah, there's Kent Beck of Extreme Programming fame, Ward Cunningham of Extreme Programming fame, Dave Thomas of Pragmatic Programming fame.
Not Wendy's fame.
Like the Dave's Burger?
Isn't that dude named Dave Thomas, the guy who founded Wendy's?
Is it?
Am I making that up?
I mean, I don't know. I know there's the Dave's famous. Yeah, Dave Thomas is the Wendy's guy. Okay, sorry, I didn't get the reference.
All different Dave Thomases, I assume.
Yeah, these are different Dave Thomases. Now this one wrote the Pragmatic Programmer. Apparently. Yeah, or he co-authored the Pragmatic Programmer. Anyway, something that I've always found interesting about Agile is how a lot of people approach Agile from a very or Agile development from a very draconian, this is the way we do it, right? We have to do the Scrum. We have to do the
stand-ups?
The backlog brewing. A Scrum? I thought a Scrum was a stand-up.
Oh, are those synonymous?
I'll
be honest. I've never worked at a place that does what you're talking about there. The draconian. We got to do it by the letter of the Agile manifesto or whatever.
Yeah, which they shouldn't, because in the manifesto, if you've ever read it, one of the key points is that you can change it. That's like one of the things. It's like the U.S. Constitution. Like one of the key things that makes it work is the fact that it's amendable, and that there's this process for making changes and stuff. So I've always found that funny, the way people approach Agile development processes sometimes. But
right, you gotta. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Different teams are different, and there's no kind of one size fits all to this kind of stuff. Probably depends a lot on the size of the team.
Yeah, well, so have you ever heard of Safe Agile?
Mm-mm.
I did Safe Agile at a company before. It's Agile for big corporate companies. And I don't know how they're different, I'm gonna be honest. But there's a different Safe stands for something else.
Oh, it's an
scale.
acronym.
It's scaled agile framework. Uh, as far as I know, it's just agile, but like bigger, I guess.
Okay.
Um, so I mean, what was the idea of agile? It was just that like people were sick of doing the waterfall approach.
I think so. I That's my understanding. Is it Agile developed kind of in opposition to these other more kind of formalized approaches that I think the big critique was just that they move too slowly. That Agile, I think that's where the term Agile comes from, is that by doing these things, we can iterate quickly and arrive at a product um, much more quickly, and then kind of adjust course much more easily, right? We
Right.
don't have to like commit to a thing that's going to be done in 2 years and then we're kind of like stuck doing it for the next 2 years. It's like we check in every day. We have these sprints that are whatever 6 weeks long. We can adjust course very easily to hopefully reach smaller milestones along the way. And I think it's very much tied into the internet, right? This um, I don't even know why I say that exactly, but I think it's very much tied to this idea of like now that we can, I don't know, communicate more quickly and asynchronously, uh, we're able to do these approaches that are can move much more quickly, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely associate it with just kind of the new wave of like startup culture kind of thing, right? Like the whole move fast, break things sort of thing.
Yeah.
Uh, that's not really part of it, but like sort of, you know. Um, okay, I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for agile software development, and this is mind blowing to me. Right at the bottom of the like general synopsis at the top, it says, while there is much anecdotal evidence that the agile mindset and agile-based practices improve the software development process, the empirical evidence is limited and less than conclusive.
Oh.
Right off rip, Wikipedia just said like, no, like maybe not.
I think it's a don't you think that's a really hard thing to measure?
Absolutely. And I think that's like a big part of what I think this episode's going to be about is like how do you even say what works? Like how do you even know, one big part of agile is like measuring velocity, right? Based on like how many story points you get done. And it's like how do we even does that even make sense to do? Are we even, if we like if I put the points to the thing and then I'm the one who works on it, like can I just give it, like I can just I've seen this happen on a lot of teams where it's like, okay, we per sprint we try to do about 6 story points, right? That's about what we have capacity to do, right? So we apply points to each ticket and then we put them in the thing. But then every sprint we move stuff around so that 6 gets done, right? So it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy sort of sometimes where it's like we get 6 done because that's what we decided we can do. Like
Yeah.
what is 6 story points? Oh, it's what you can do in a sprint. How big is a sprint? Oh, it's 6 story point. You know what I mean? Like it's there's a lot of that kind of stuff that goes on.
Circular definition. Yeah.
Right. Um,
We don't use story points or velocity on our team. So we kind of, I don't know. We say that we do agile, but I think we kind of pick and choose the parts that we use from it. So I don't know. Tell me a little bit about how that works on teams that you've worked on.
so it's been different for different teams. But first of all, like I was saying, that's kind of how it should be, right? Like you picking and choosing what works for you is how it's supposed to work, I think,
Hmm.
at least in my opinion. So like you guys do agile the way it's supposed to be, in my opinion. Um, so with the story point, I've worked on teams where it's just like, hey, Colin, how many points do you think this story is? And I just say 2 or whatever. And I've worked on teams where we do the planet poker. Have you ever done planet poker? Do you even know what I'm talking about?
No, I've heard you use that term before. I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, so there's like websites for doing this. I think one of Planet Poker, I think is the name of one of them. Yeah, Plan It Poker. And it's just like everyone logs in, you make like a room and everyone logs in, and then the scrum master, whoever, brings up a ticket, which this is a big thing. Everyone on the team is supposed to be familiar with the ticket beforehand. They're not. Like,
Okay.
there's at least half the people haven't looked at it yet, right? So
Sure.
we spend like a lot of time just talking about what the story is, and then everyone. And I think it's supposed to be done in person with physical cards, but like using this like online tools, you can like just do it online. And everyone says,
Why is everyone supposed to be familiar with the ticket? Did the project manager send you out something beforehand that said,
yeah,
here's the
you're
ones we're
supposed to
going to
have done it.
consider?
Yeah, and then at least on this team, like he would send a reminder like the day before too, like, hey guys, remember we're doing sprint planning or grooming or whatever meeting it is. We're doing that tomorrow, so make sure you're looking through these tickets here or whatever.
Okay.
So everyone's supposed to already know somewhat what these things are, and then from that they can everyone like assigns a number or like they give what they think the story points is, and then I think it's supposed to just be the average is what it gets assigned. Um, when we did it on that team, we would spend a lot of time arguing about the value of the story, which was, I think that was the moment where I was like, yeah, I think this is like, I think Agile is stupid and dumb and a waste of time because I don't understand why we're doing that. Like, if it's a one or a two, like it doesn't really matter, right? Um,
And what goes into your decision of how many points to assign? It's the difficulty, it's the length of time it's going to take. Um, is it like number of developers that are going to work on it, or does one developer work on one ticket?
well, that's too. So every team is different with this. Most of the teams I've worked on, it's time. It's more or less time based, right? Which just goes back to what I was saying about a sprint being six. So like a 2 point story would be like a 3 day task or something like that.
Okay.
Um, I worked on teams where we went by complexity, which drove me nuts. I never knew like no one could really pin down what that meant, like what has more complexity than what.
Hmm.
Um, but also about like how many people are going to work on it. I think most teams have a rule that like if a story is like 8 points or more, then that means the ticket's too big and it needs to be broken up.
Okay.
And I think each ticket is supposed to be achievable by one person, or at least each sub. If not, then it should have like subtasks, which each has its own value associated to it. Um,
Gotcha.
so like I feel like I start getting into this, and you start to understand how there's like training programs just for Agile, right? There's like Agile certifications and stuff. Like this is a whole school of stuff that's been created for uh some reason, right? This is all supposed to be in service of allowing us to like make better software and plan well.
Right. It, I kind of feel like at some point, all of this stuff is gets us back to where we were before Agile. What Agile was trying to get us away
Right.
from, right?
Yeah.
Is we were trying to get away from this big behemoth approach, and at some point, I mean, once you've added in all this stuff, even if you're, I don't know, even if you're checking in every day on it, are you really just back to this point where there's just so much like overhead in the project management process that you're, I don't know, you might as well just go back to waterfalling.
Yeah, and sometimes I wonder, like, I think there are some projects where waterfall makes more sense. Like when you're working on a web app, which is what we've worked on our careers mostly,
Hmm.
I think Agile makes sense, right? Because it's like this forever thing. But if you're working on something that's going to be, I worked on I've worked on a team that made like interfaces for like warehouse control systems, and so it would be like a desktop application that just lived on one machine that never moved, right? It's just this computer in this warehouse and it runs this thing and that's it. Like waterfall makes sense for that, right? Let's plan this thing out, let's build it, and then let's put it there, and then no one ever touch it ever, right? Like
Right.
that's how it should be.
I'm working on an integration right now with another team, and the way that they seem to work is this is like outside of my company, and the way that they seem to work is that we they're going to design a thing, and they work with this company, and they're going to design and deliver a piece of software, and then like that's where their part of it ends, right? And this is a multi-year thing that they're creating, but you're right, it's not a thing that goes on forever. The application that they're delivering goes on forever, but they're going to deliver it to this other company, and the other company is then responsible for supporting it and all that.
Mm.
And I think that waterfall does make sense for that kind of stuff when you have a massive goal, and then like that's the end of the project as far as you're concerned.
I think we should change the name of waterfall because waterfalls like continue to fall. You know what I mean? I never thought about this before.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
guess I
but,
guess it makes sense. They're not agile, right? They don't move like different directions, but they're always falling, right? They just keep going.
but I think the idea is that there's a thing, and all the things are sub things of the thing, right? You know what I'm saying? There's a goal that you're trying to get to, and everything flows down from that.
Okay. Like it's like an
I,
outline. I think I see what you mean. Yeah.
I gotta look this up because I feel like I'm screwing that up. But whenever I see a waterfall, yeah, like if you go to Wikipedia and look up the image there that's of the waterfall method, you can see like
Sorry, I
every,
looked up. I just searched waterfall itself. I just see pictures of nature.
now you're in your happy place.
Linear sequential phases. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that makes me think of a waterfall.
But I think that's the idea, right? That everything kind of like flows down from this main goal that you're doing, and the subtasks have subtasks
Right.
and
And
sub
there's it
subtasks.
follows a phased process. Yeah. Been a while since I've looked at this. Um, Something I find interesting though is like when I look at the 17 agile cult founders, uh, sorry, that was mean. But like when I look at some of these people, a lot of the things that they're famous for are things that people have like really flipped on. Like, a lot of these guys are like extreme programming guys who, or like, okay, Dave Thomas, he coined the phrase "dry, do not repeat yourself." A lot of people are like, there's a lot of backlash against like object-oriented programming and inheritance these days. Like, a lot of people are very like, I guess they still kind of believe in don't repeat yourself, right? But like, I mean, this is all stuff from 2001. I feel like we need like a new. I feel like we need to make a new. You and I need to make a new process, like a 1x developer process, software development lifecycle, and we need to make a bunch of books and sell a bunch of courses on this thing that doesn't make any difference. It's actually just we can call it like I don't know. How can we just like rebrand Waterfall into something else?
That's
Like
exactly what I was thinking. Why don't we just do waterfall under a different name? Yeah.
call it like Mudslide.
Um, I think, do you associate don't repeat? I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent. You think don't repeat yourself as an object oriented concept?
Now that I think about it, no, it's not because functional programming does the same thing, right? Your function, you want your functions to be anything you're doing multiple times should be a function. Uh, but like, what else is in extreme programming? I think of that as being like a very dated thing, right?
I thought Agile. So you said that a couple guys from the extreme programming were part of this Agile manifesto or committee or whatever, right? But
Mhm.
so I thought that extreme programming was kind of like an intermediate step. There was waterfall, and then extreme programming was um, kind of formulated in response to that, and then Agile was kind of
Okay,
taking it to the next level.
I think you're right. Yeah. So that would make sense that they are dated because it's like pre-agile stuff.
But there's no question that like I mean the world has changed in 25 years, right? I don't know that I think your main point there still stands, which is just that maybe we need to be thinking about something different. Maybe things have changed enough that we need a different project management style for, the next 25 years.
Mhm.
Because Agile, I don't know that I'm not aware of any like serious alternatives to Agile these days
Yeah.
that that are not these big behemoth approaches. Like what's I feel
Well,
like
I think that's
yeah,
part of the advantage of the fact that Agile is this malleable thing, right? Because it's like every team is doing different things, but they're all calling themselves Agile.
yeah.
And like there's really no way to exclude any, like you can't really say, oh, you're not doing Agile. I mean, I don't know. So like when I look at the manifesto again, I should have like revisited this before we started recording a little bit. But so the four like tenets of the manifesto is individuals and interactions over processes and tools, which right off rip, I think that's probably the number one thing that a lot of agile teams don't do, right? They follow processes more than anything else.
Yeah.
Working software over comprehensive documentation.
Oh,
That's good.
that's really interesting.
Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Like, yeah, that's good, but also like, I don't know. That seems like I feel like that's like a false dichotomy, sort of, right? Like those are two different things.
I'm not sure I totally understand that one.
Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So I think it's just I feel like what they're getting at with that is like in the waterfall approach, there's a lot of contract negotiation in the sense of like, okay, what are the firm requirements for what we deliver, right? Like what is what we okay, we're gonna give you this, we're not gonna give you that. We're only gonna give you this, we're only gonna you know what I mean? There's that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And the idea is that Agile is focusing more on just like getting to a solution that the customer wants, regardless of not like nitpicking, like nickel and diming kind of thing. That's my gut reaction to what that means.
And does that involve more? It seems like that implies more back and forth with the customer, right? Like,
Yeah, I think
so
so.
pragmatic programmer talks about both prototypes and tracer bullets, I think he calls them,
Mhm.
where it's just like, and we've talked about like vertical slice, like basically trying to get to something that you can show a customer and kind of like go back and forth with them as quickly
Yeah,
as you can.
yeah, that's part of it for sure. And then the final one is responding to change over following a plan, which is I think that's the part that people remember. That's the part that people do.
That's what I think of. That's what I most closely associate with Agile is,
Yeah.
yeah, that ability to uh, change course and alter the plan kind of on a dime. Say that first one again. Say that first bullet point again.
It was individuals and interactions over processes and tools.
Yeah. I think the reason that is the hardest one to implement and the reason that most teams fall short of that is because hmm, processes and tools are the easiest to reproduce. You know what I mean?
Uh,
Interpersonal interactions on a team and like this kind of this negotiation, like what you're talking about with the Planet Poker stuff, that's that's difficult work, and I it's almost not even really software work. You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
like it's just interpersonal skills and give and take and compromise and that kind of stuff. Not taking things personally, putting aside your own ego, all that kind of stuff. It, I think those are that part of it depends so much on personality, and it's a lot easier to just say, well, the Agile manifesto says we do this, so this is the tool we use. So we use Jira, right?
Yeah.
It's I think that's the hardest part to reproduce.
Well, it's the thing striking to me is just this last week, uh, a manager told me that I wasn't following the process. And next time he says that, I'm gonna whip out the Agile manifesto on him. We were doing a release and there was a bug, and I was like, do we want to hotfix this or what? And uh, they were saying like, oh, that's not the process. We need to follow the process. And it's like, honestly, that bugs me a lot sometimes because like in that instance, he was right. Like we probably don't need to like change things during the release, you know. But like the process isn't like dogma, right? Like
Mm.
we can change the process. We can not follow the process sometimes.
Why do you have a process if you're not going to follow it, though?
Yeah, we should just delete the process.
No
Yeah,
process at
the
all.
process should be changed. I don't know.
I think there's value in having a process, right? Like you want to decide before, like it's important to decide beforehand if problems arise, here's what we're going to do. We have a plan and how we're going
Yeah,
to address them. You don't want to do that in the heat of the moment when it's like we just shipped a bad piece of software.
I think the way that the manifesto puts it is the correct way to put it, which is individuals and interactions over processes and tools.
I do like that about the agile stuff is that yeah, I don't think any of those things are saying like we don't need the latter thing, right? We
Right.
don't need processes and tools. It's just like if if you come to a fork in the road and you have to make a decision, choose.
We prioritize. Yeah.
You have a preference for one thing. I think the documentation one is also interesting. We were kind of talking about this. So can you read that bullet point again, just so I get the wording right?
Working software over comprehensive documentation.
So I've kind of been wondering about documentation lately for some reason, and whether or not it's even possible or desirable to have like to dedicate a lot of time to having comprehensive documentation. And I've just been thinking like I don't know that I've ever been on a team or ever seen an open source project. I'm sure they're out there, but I've just never seen it personally that really, really nailed the process of keeping documentation up to date as the software got updated. Um, I think it's a really, I think it's a really hard thing to do, and I think that's kind of interesting that the agile stuff just kind of says that's not the important part. The important part is that the software is working. The documentation comes second.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I find that interesting. And yeah, documentation is incredibly hard to do. Um, it's incredibly hard to do well. And there's been projects that have tried to do that have tried to kind of do like both. Like oh geez, like Django has that built-in thing where you get like a Swagger report generated from your API.
Mm,
Like there's been some projects like that where they've tried to kind of bring it all together so it's like your code is like self-documenting kind of thing.
yeah.
I don't know if any of those have really truly succeeded, but I feel like something like that is probably like the right way to do it.
I mean, I know of stuff like that, like there's JSDoc and Doxygen and stuff like that
Yeah.
that will generate documentation from your code. I think that gets you a good chunk of the way there. I think that's going to correctly document, yeah, your endpoints or maybe your classes and your function parameters and stuff like that. I'm not. I guess the kind of documentation I'm thinking about is more like higher level than that, more conceptual, and maybe like I don't know what I'm trying to say there. It's just more like you write this is what this class is used for, and then that changes somewhere along the way, and then nobody ever
Yeah.
goes back and updates the documentation.
Right.
It,
I'll say that's probably worse. Like a worse thing than a poorly documented project is a project that has documentation that's straight up lying to you.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like when you're calling the function exactly as the docs say to do it, and then you actually look at the code and you find out, oh no, it requires this or it doesn't require that or this isn't doing what it says it's supposed to do. That's like the worst.
yeah, that is terrible. I've worked with some open source projects that do that and be like, this function returns -1, 0, or 1, and like it returns 2 or whatever. Like, what? I don't know. As I'm saying that, I almost think that it almost sounds like the ideal that I'm reaching for is totally out of reach. You know what I mean? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe we just do like Agile and give up on the idea of complete completely correct documentation and just say, if the software is functional and it works, that's what you go by.
Yeah. So I want to
I
talk
just,
about like Jira. Is Jira inseparable from Agile?
hmm, I
I-
could
I'm gonna say it's
see,
not. I just recently heard somebody talking about a Jira alternative. I can't remember what it was called. I'd like never heard of it before. It seems like everyone uses Jira everywhere you go, right?
yeah,
Um,
it's pretty ubiquitous these days.
yeah. It's weird to me that it's ubiquitous in that sense, and then like I hear people complaining about it constantly.
This is just occurring to me now, but like one, maybe this aspect of Agile that you're talking about, where you're able to kind of like modify the process to suit your team, that almost seems like what people hate about Jira. You know what I mean? Is that they've added a feature for every single possible scenario that
Yeah,
people could have asked for. Like, my team does it this way, so can you add a field that does this? And all of a sudden, Jira is this like
yeah. It
massive.
feels very over-engineered. Like it feels like there's just way too much shit.
There's so much going on.
So the one I was thinking of is called Linear.
Hmm.
And I think I've never used it, but I get the sense that Linear is a bit more designed more for the engineering team, like a little bit more for developers, a little bit less for like managers. The way Jira is a little bit more for project management people.
Hmm.
I would like to try it. I would like to try this. I don't really know what makes it different, or I don't really know anything about it.
Hmm. Interesting.
But I
Yeah.
oftentimes feel like when I'm using Jira, I often feel like, man, it'd be so cool if I just had just a Kanban board with like very few things.
Yeah. So tell me about that. You guys use Jira on your team. You hate it?
I don't know if I hate it. Um, the the real thing, like, so I've been thinking for a long time that I kind of want to like try to make my own like Jira clone,
Oh
just
yeah.
because like my main gripes with Jira are things that I feel like are very solvable. It's very slow, and the UI is just very ugly and cluttered. And I feel like it shouldn't be that hard to just make like a you know like single page application that has you can make a sprint and you can make tickets and attach them to sprints and then assign them to the users. And I mean there's a lot going on, but it's not, this is something someone should be able to come in and eat Atlassian's lunch on this, I feel.
Yeah.
You know, it's weird to me that that hasn't happened.
It is kind of weird that hasn't happened. Yeah. Here's what I think is going on with Jira. I think I think that a successful Jira replacement needs to be opinionated and needs to have some kind of learning curve associated with it, so that when you pick up this new Jira replacement, in order to avoid that problem I was just describing of having like a million fields and just a million different ways of doing things in Jira, you have something like, yeah, like a Kanban board or whatever it is. There's just like some kind of opinionated, this is the way we do things. And the project manager has to come in and be like, okay, well, this is the way I do this thing, and this is how I manage a project, and this is how I manage a ticket. And I think project managers don't want to do that. I think they want to do things. I think they have an idea already in their mind of, here's how we manage a project, and they try to fit that
They put that
into
into,
whatever
yeah,
tool they're using. And that's why
yeah.
Jira is a massive mess, is
And so
because
I've
they've
I've
just
heard
done that
people
for years.
I've heard people say that like when people complain about Jira, I've seen people respond with, "Oh, you don't hate Jira, you just hate like your team's Jira." And I don't know, I've never felt like I was on a team where I was like, "Oh yeah, this is the way that this is supposed to be done."
Hmm.
I don't know.
I'll say I don't hate Jira. So I feel like we do a decent job on our team of using Jira. I don't love it or anything, but we kind of use a pretty small subset of the features, and I think we do a decent job of keeping things under control in Jira. It is slow, I'll say that. And there's just a ton of stuff that we don't use, like, you know,
Well, so
features that nobody
do
cares
you ever
about.
think that Jira is like kind of overkill for what you do?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Like I feel like Trello or something, or even like Remember the Milk or like a Google Calendar could be enough probably for a lot of teams.
Yes. I love Trello. I think Trello is fantastic. Um,
Why don't more teams do that?
I don't know. That's a good question. I I haven't checked in really on like some of the other some of the other things like that, like Asana and things like that. I know they're
So yeah.
around, but I kind of have this feeling that they've all kind of fallen into that same trap of Jira of just like expanding over time.
Mhm.
I could be wrong about that. I don't know.
I don't know. I haven't used any of those much.
Hmm. But I don't know. What do you think about that idea that Jira is? Do you think that Jira could accommodate a workflow on your team that you would be happy with? Like you log into Jira and there's still a billion fields all over the place, but like you don't use 85% of them. And sure, you could use something simpler, but do you think a project manager on your team could design a workflow that works for your team with Jira?
Well, I mean, I think what we have works for my team, right?
Oh, okay.
And that's kind of the thing about this is like it works, but I don't think it's optimal, you know? And then also I think like I don't know what optimal would look like. That's always what it comes down to is like I complain a lot about like ceremonial like agile meetings and about Jira and about all project management things, but I don't really know what the alternative to these things are or what it would look like or what they should be.
Yeah. Maybe we need to design a process and a tool for the second quarter of the 21st century. Maybe it's time that we rethink this.
So before we started recording, you were talking a little bit about like how, Linux is like this kind of holy grail of software projects, right? Like it's wildly successful, super well. I mean, at least successful is just a way to put it, right? It's a wildly successful project. How, why do you think that is? And how can we replicate that in other projects?
Yeah, I think it is. Well, I think it's inarguably wildly successful, both in terms of just like number of deployments, but also in terms of the code base, right? It's widely regarded as like a very good code base. It doesn't have huge bugs that break all the time. Um, I think they've done an astounding job of maintaining backward compatibility, even with like weird machines that nobody uses and all that kind of stuff. It's not just designed for the stuff that you and I are running, but also embedded machines and all that kind of stuff. Um, so how do you do that? I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I kind of think you need a guy at the top like a Linus who just says yes and no and has like a really clear idea of this is the way we do things in this project. We're not, I think he has certain ideas in his mind about um, things like not breaking backward compatibility, where he's just like, this is the way we do things on this team. Um, we're gonna, we're gonna stick to these rules hard and fast. And if you submit some code to me that doesn't, abide by these rules, I'm just gonna reject it. And it's just at the end of the day, it's my decision whether the code goes in or not. And so I kind of think you need I don't know, benevolent dictator like that in order to make a software project of that complexity really, really work. Now, how do you replicate that is the really, really hard question. I think you can't just like put a job posting on Indeed and find a Linus, you,
Yeah.
you gotta, I think it's virtually impossible for a hiring manager to find a Linus. I think, I really don't know how you do it. You have to have someone who's passionate about the thing, is an excellent engineer, is um, willing to do more than engineering, like willing to mediate some of the interpersonal relationship stuff. Linus gets a lot of criticism for the way he handles that stuff sometimes, but it's also shitty, thankless work that somebody has to do. This whole thing of like organizing the different subsystems in the Linux kernel. That's not fun stuff to do always, and you have to be willing to not only understand the intricacies of the code, but also be willing to do that stuff and just have a clear vision of where you're going. I think that's a really hard combination of stuff to find.
Yeah, there's a few things in there that I find interesting. Like, first of all, when I read Linus Torvalds' book, one thing that he stresses a lot is how he never really like wanted any of this, right? Like,
Hmm.
so I don't think, like you mentioned, like you can't just like hire somebody on Indeed because like the person you're looking for like isn't looking for you, right? Like it's there's something like that in Dune, right? Where they say that like he he is the Messiah because he doesn't want to be, or something like that, right?
Mm,
Like because he rejects the power, that's what makes him who he is, right? It like if someone wants to be a benevolent dictator, they're not going to be a good benevolent dictator, right?
right.
Like it like doesn't work that way. But what really stands out to me is kind of you mentioned like the focus on kind of the philosophy of the project, and like what values you have. And I don't think the Agile Manifesto or any extreme programming or any philosophies mention that. Like, do any of them talk about putting stress on what is important to you for your project?
Hmm.
I feel like they should, right? That because that does stand out to me as like, okay, Linux has a big focus on backwards compatibility, which is not something that every project needs.
That's true.
So your project, you need to like figure out what it is that you focus on, what it is that's important to you and your team. And there's not like an agile ceremony for that, is there?
What would you even, yeah, what would you even call that? That's so team and project specific, right? Um, Maybe it's something like a mission statement for a project.
Yeah, and that sounds so like the type of thing that developers hate,
Yeah.
right? Like it's so like ethereal and like not project managey kind of thing. But I feel like you do kind of need that, at least in the beginning, right? You don't need to have it doesn't need to be like a regular thing. But I do think that you as a team need to come together and say, okay, look, we really focus on accessibility. That's a top priority of us for us is accessibility. A top priority for us is uh, not just you can't just say like just UX, but like ease of use for these types of users that we have or whatever, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, you do need to have like hard in writing like targets for like performance and stuff, which is weird because the manifesto mentioned what was it customer collaboration over
Con
contracts.
yeah.
I feel like that's something that comes out of a contract negotiation, right? It's like, okay, pages need to load within 3 seconds or whatever.
Hmm. I mean, that could come from customer conversations too. I feel like I think what you're thinking of there is like hard and fast limits, right? Like
Yeah,
encoded in the contract would be, yeah, the page will load in under 1 second, whereas a customer might just be like, too slow.
because I've had like I've worked on tickets where it's like, hey, this page is slow. Like that's the bug, right? This page is slow. And then it's like, well, what's the target? And then no one really knows, right? Because there's
Yeah.
no one really wants to take ownership of that. Nobody really where does a number like that come from? Someone eventually someone just kind of makes one up, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like there should have been a made up number. There should be a made up number by somebody, right? So I don't know.
I think on a lot of teams, yeah, taking ownership is the right way to say that. A lot of times on teams, there's a hesitancy to be the guy who comes up with that number because then you're stuck with it, right? You are stuck with it. If you say this project has a big focus on backwards compatibility, then you got to do all the pain in the butt work to like make sure that constraint holds for, uh, you know, the duration of the project potentially, right? Um, Somebody has to be the one who's like, all of our pages will load in under 1 second. Even though that's a made up number, um, I'm going to be the guy who makes sure that that happens. And I think that's a hard thing. That's, I mean, nobody wants to do that, right? Nobody,
Yeah,
everyone wants good performance, but nobody wants to be the one to ensure that that happens on every single page.
yeah.
Taking ownership. Yeah. I think, I don't know, say more about what you were saying about, you said, you need guiding principles at least in the beginning, but they don't need to be, did you say revisited often or?
Uh, I guess what I mean is I would just I'm thinking about like those ceremonial agile meetings, right? And I just don't think that there needs to be one for that, right? At least not very often. Maybe it could be like annual or something, but there doesn't need to be like a every sprint we talk about, uh, how we feel about what software should be like.
Right.
You know?
Starts to sound like saying the Pledge of Allegiance before every
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
every scrum. This is hard stuff. And I really think, at the beginning I was kind of talking about like interpersonal issues and stuff like that. I think that a lot of this stuff comes down to that, and I don't know that there's really any process or tool. People want a process and a tool to do this kind of stuff because it's easy. It's easy just to find the thing and to implement the piece of software that you think is going to, I don't know, fix all your project management woes. But I think it comes down to these interpersonal issues of finding people who are willing to take ownership of parts of the project and ensure that that happens, even if that means saying no to new features, even if that means um, sacrificing other pieces along the way. Right? We've 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 dedicated to this, so we're going to have to jettison this other piece. That that piece isn't going to get into the program because we need to focus on performance.
That's the part that sucks is when like you've been working on something for a long time and then it doesn't get to be released because it for whatever reason, and like everyone wants it to go out, but you gotta hold fast.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are a million features in the Linux kernel that are not in the Linux kernel that somebody has written and they're sitting in a branch somewhere, and Linus was just like, no, not going to go in this release, and it's not going to go in the next release.
Yeah. Except Linus was like, maybe you should quit being a fucking stupid idiot.
Maybe he doesn't always say it the right way, but I think his heart's in the right place.
Yeah. Um, is that enough of that? Do we want to get into whose side are you on?
Yeah, I think that's enough of that. That's interesting topic, and I think we should make a Jira replacement.
I really think about it a lot. But I think about it and then I start thinking about building it and I'm like, I don't want to do that. Yeah, I don't want to like I want to make a bunch of forms and I want to work on different stuff. At least right now.
I love project management stuff. I think it's actually a lot of fun to think about. So I don't know. Maybe we
No,
should do
I
that.
spent a lot of time thinking about this though. Like, uh, uh, the idea I got is like really what would be super sick is if there was basically Jira. Like, I mean, you talk about Jira being like having too many things, but like it's a stripped down project management tool Kanban thing, but it's also either is a code repository or just integrates directly with GitHub. which I know Jira does do with Bitbucket,
Hmm.
but no one uses Bitbucket, so like who cares? But um, that's what I imagine. That's like my dream is like something like a really stripped down, simple kind of project management Kanban board that integrates directly with uh, a code repository, so that like in a way where you don't even have to like manually move things along. Like when a PR gets approved, it manually like it automatically the ticket automatically moves along to QA or whatever, like that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
I think that's like my dream.
That'd be cool. Yeah, I think I'm seeing your vision for that. That's good.
I think we need some like 3x plus developer to build that.
Yeah. If you're interested in that, email us.
Yeah. Actually, no, don't. Just start building it. Just start building it.
All right. Can I do a whose side are you on? I have one for you.
Absolutely.
And I haven't I wanted to spring this on you as a surprise because I want your honest reaction to it.
Okay, okay.
I don't even know the right terminology for this, but in a lot of programming languages, um, so in the old days in a programming language, in a list of items, you had, this comma, this comma, this comma, this comma, this.
Hmm.
And if you put them on multiple lines, then you could not have a trailing comma at the end, right?
Yes.
And people didn't like that because when you added an item to the end of the list, then you had to add a comma to the previous item on the list,
Hmm.
and that
Yes.
resulted in uh, a diff that was 2 lines instead of 1 line.
Yeah.
So people have worked around this with a technique that I guess is called like leading commas or something like that, where the comma goes before the item on each line.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm talking about here?
I don't think I've seen it, but I get what you're saying.
So the whole point is to avoid the 2 line diff by doing comma item, comma item, comma item on each line.
But the first one isn't like that.
Right. The first one is just um,
It's just the name of the first item.
yeah.
Okay.
So this came up. I saw a Hacker News thread on it. It was the idea of integrating the allowing trailing commas in SQL in a SQL select clause, right? So that because that's one. SQL is an extremely old language. There's and it doesn't allow trailing commas like most modern languages do.
Yeah.
So people will do this leading comma thing.
Hmm.
How do you feel about leading commas?
Feels very weird. I will say I like trailing commas. I think everything should support trailing commas for the reason you're talking about. Not just because of like the way it makes your diff look, but because I actively forget to add a comma if there wasn't one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I feel like that's probably the way to do it. Um, pre-pended commas like that feels weird. Does that work in everything? Like I feel like there's probably languages where the comma has to be like there can't be any characters between the thing and the comma. You know what I mean?
I don't know about every language.
But it
Supposedly
works in
it works in
SQL.
SQL. Yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause I don't think I've seen it. I'd be curious. Like, can you do that in Python? I don't think you can because it's so finicky about white space.
Yeah, I don't think you can well, I would assume you cannot do it in Python, but Python supports trailing commas, so it's not really an
Yeah,
issue.
yeah. And you could do it in JavaScript because JavaScript doesn't care about. Well, maybe I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't think you can do it in everything. So we're really mostly just talking about SQL here. I mean, I guess that's fine. It feels really icky to me, I gotta say.
Yes. I, I'm glad we agree. I didn't realize I had strong opinions on this, but when I saw leading comma, I feel like it was written by a crazy person.
Right.
It's
I get the vision. Like the way you explained it, it's like I see what we're doing, but it would be really cool if we could just have trailing commas.
yeah. I I feel like the cure is worse than the disease. I totally understand why people do it. It's you don't want the two-line diff, and I get that. Maybe it's a little harder to read, but like leading commas is just like, if I saw that in real life, I might cry a little.
Yeah, that's crazy. I never heard of this. It feels really crazy to me that the first one doesn't have a comma. So it's like you still, I mean, it's because we're assuming we're adding to the end, but like I feel like we, in a way, still kind of have the same problem, right? Because we still don't have a comma at either end. You know what I mean? Like we have the same problem, but at the top, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm alphabetizing these things, which I'm probably not in SQL, but if I am I have something that starts with an A, then I still have the same problem where I have to add a comma to the next thing, right? Right. So
Yep.
uh, yeah,
Uh, yeah. I guess there's probably an argument that you add to the end of the list far more often than the very beginning, because like then adding to the middle or adding to the end is the same. It's only if you're adding an item to the very first item to the list that it changes.
I'm just looking this up now because I've never heard of this. I mean, it seems like a lot of people do this actually. This seems somewhat common, but I'm gonna go with a strong answer here, which is that with code we prioritize readability over writability, right? So I think for that reason, I'm against this because it's something you look at and you're like, what? What's going on? I don't know. So I think we're doing trailing commas even if that means that our last element doesn't have a comma at the end.
I like that principle. Yeah. Prioritize readability, and leading commas are not readable at all.
Yeah, that's like the opposite of readable. Like, uh, like it makes my eyes bleed.
Maybe this is another way to say what you're just saying, but there's something about leading commas that makes me feel like we are working for the machine. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah, yeah,
we're doing things in a way that's weird to us in order to satisfy the computer. And it's like we, you know, in some ways programming is all about doing weird things to satisfy the computer. But like I feel like when we can avoid that, when we can make things feel more natural, we should.
yeah. Good code it looks good to a person.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Leading commas busted.
yeah, myth busted. Dude, the other day we got a little time. The other day I just found out my wife had never even heard of Mythbusters.
Really?
Yeah, I guess I wasn't really on in Mexico, uh, but I don't know. I feel like you would have come across it somewhere. She'd never even heard of it.
Yeah, that show was on for like a million years, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think like they're still active on YouTube. Like their YouTube channel, Adam Savage still does stuff.
Oh yeah, I've
Uh,
watched some of his videos on YouTube.
yeah, so
It's
huh,
interesting, dude.
never never even heard of it. Never seen a single episode.
So you guys what are like binging from season one, episode
We,
one, all the way through?
I just went on YouTube and found the first one we found was the one where they do would the guy and the lady both fit on the thing in Titanic? Could they
Oh
both be on the floating thing?
yeah,
They probably could have. Is what they came to. They probably both could have floated on there.
very different movie.
Yeah.
I met those dudes.
The people in Titanic? Well, you met
Like
Adam Savage and Jesse?
Jamie, Jamie,
Jamie?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We went to some live thing, and I don't know, got some VIP tickets or whatever, and like met them after the show. There's a picture in my
It was
bedroom.
like their show or
Yeah, they busted myths live.
where was that at?
Midland, I think.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah, it was like
When was
10 years.
this?
10 years ago, maybe.
Oh, so when they were like probably like at their peak, like this was like a big show, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a big show. They sold out the theater. I think it was after they had let the rest of the staff go. So I
Oh,
think
okay.
like the other three, and I feel like by the time that happened, maybe I'm totally off on this, but I think by the time that happened, the show was kind of like had passed its
It was
peak
over the
or
hill.
whatever.
Okay.
Um,
I didn't even know they did live stuff. I didn't know anything about this.
I don't know if they still do, but they were taking it on the road there.
Well,
Picture in my bedroom of me and my wife with the
do
two
you
of them.
remember what they did?
No, I don't. There's something with a
Do you think like in every city in every show they do the same myths?
yes.
They do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, some
Yeah,
of
they
them
would have to.
involved like elaborate setups and stuff.
Well,
They weren't like building robots in real
I
time
mean,
or
I guess
anything.
you know that's like good science, right? Like they repeat it over and over again.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I wish I could remember what the myths are. I'm sure I can look it up online.
that's crazy. What what's like a dumb myth? I'm trying to think of like what something that you could just like prove right now. Like they just take some cold water and some hot water and put it on a stove. Just see.
What?
There's like an old wives' tale that that cold water boils faster than room temperature water,
Oh, yeah.
which
It,
it doesn't.
I I've seen a Gordon Ramsay thing where
Yeah,
he's like,
yeah, that's where
someone
I
puts
heard
the
it.
cold one.
He's
You're
like, "What the hell
so
are you doing?"
stupid.
It's like, "Because it boils faster." And he's like, "What?"
They don't have that myth in England.
But yeah, they just boil water on stage every city across the country.
See?
All right, let's wrap this up.
All right.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
1x
See you next
Developer
time.
Podcast.
Hey everybody, this is Colin. First and foremost, I want to thank you all for listening to this episode of the 1x Developer Podcast and let you know that if you have any questions, comments, or if you just want to tell us about your day, you can reach us at X, formerly known as Twitter, at 1x Developer Podcast. We're also on YouTube at 1x Developer Podcast. You can email us if you're weird at 1xdeveloperpodcast at protonmail.com. And lastly, don't forget to follow, subscribe, all that stuff, so you don't miss any further episodes of the 1x Developer Podcast. Thanks so much. See you next time.